Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How can that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. You know, I'm really excited about this program because it is a basic method, again, that you can adapt and springboard just how you like. It brings pasta and seafood together as if it's really rich, and it isn't really rich, as you'll see by the numbers. I learned this from a chef. Actually, his name is Giovanni Scolzo. I've got his card. And he used to be at a restaurant La Brochetta in Arizona, in Scottsdale. He's now, I want you to know where this guy's gone, because he's good. It's in Babo Ganzo restaurant. It's in Santa Fe. And he rules that kitchen like a rod of iron. Nothing is done. I mean, nothing is done ahead of time. Everything, he said, last a moment, just sort of put the garlic and bang it. You know. Good man, really good man. This is his marinara style sauce, which takes about 15 minutes to make. The spaghettini is going to take 5 minutes to cook. The salmon sauce is sort of handled in the midst of all that, about 8 or 9 minutes, roughly. The garnish will take me just about a couple of minutes. So all in all, you could say it comes in within about 20 minutes. Little splashes of red from the tomatoes in there. Pinks are in it as well. Flashes of the oregano sort of thrown into it. Little dusting of cheese over the top. Oh, God. Yeah, really neat stuff. Okay, so you ready for this? This is a simple dish, and it is so many interesting ideas in the middle of it. It's also quite quick for me, so come on, let's have a go. Great. Now, the marinara sauce, and this is useful for so many different things in the kitchen. Just great stuff. What I'd like to suggest is that you get the Roma tomato. Now, the Roma tomato is just 2 pounds of Roma tomatoes to make up a basic marinara sauce. Good, fine. And this all fits into a plastic bag. Now, if you just make one turn over the plastic, it's a little bit tricky, this, just to get the technique right, but you just lean on it. It's squishy. It's like going for a swim in Southend. And if you don't know where Southend is, it's for my friends who are in England. Southend is where it's a bit muddy, and you go for a swim, and this is a bit like what it feels like when you go for a swim there. Okay, break them all down and put those on one side. We're going to use in just a second. Now, spot of oil, and this is where the dish can run away with you. I put in 1 teaspoonful of oil, but I'd like to suggest I keep this in the safe. This is the most wonderful green, extra virgin olive oil. It comes from Tuscany, and it was just super. It was given to me as a gift, and I'm very grateful for it, but I have to use it up fairly quickly, because you should never keep oil. You keep wine, you don't keep oil. The oil should be used when young. When it's extra sort of you know, I've put in the wrong pound, doesn't matter. When it is extra beautiful virgin oil, then you need to be very, very careful about using it, because it is so wonderful that you want to get as much flavor as you possibly can into the dish. And so my theory is use a much lighter one and just get a certain amount of flavor out of the oil, but mostly out of the vegetables, because what I want to do is I want to get this oil. You see, when it sizzles like that, what's happening is that all those flavor sacs in the onion are being broken out into the dish, and you get a much greater and more intense flavor from it. And so that's why I use that. I wouldn't use the beautiful extra green, wonderful virgin oil. I would use that with a little tiny piece of good bread and share that with Fugate. If you don't know who he is, just watch the credits. All right, so a little bit of carrot, a little bit of celery in there to be able to get that thing, about a stick of both of those. Chuck that in as well and move that around. And now you're beginning to get that smell wafting up into the kitchen, the basic concept behind breaking out the natural oils in the vegetables. Okay. To this then, you then add your crushed tomatoes, the Roma tomatoes. Drop those in. This is so simple. And save the plastic bag, obviously. We then get to the oregano. After a little bit of salt and pepper, a little freshly ground black pepper, about a quarter teaspoonful in there. And about just under a quarter to about an eighth of a teaspoonful of salt should do it. Taste it always, you know, it happens to be your taste. If you like a lot of salt, trim back a little bit, but never be niggardly there. You've always got to let it, you know, be seen. Here is the marjoram. Now this is a marjoram which comes into a little white flower. I was trying to say flower, bloom, but it didn't in time. These little white flowers show that it is the kind of marjoram that I want to use. It's we call it oregano, which is a wild marjoram from Greece. This one's doing much better, but it's not the same kind, but it'll do. Now I'm going to take about 3 pieces of about 3 inches long and throw that into the top. You can use dried, but frankly, for me, it is not as good as growing your own if you possibly can. Even in a sunny window, do it. So press that down into the rest there. Get the heat up underneath the pan, put a lid on the top of it, and let that just simmer away for about 15 minutes, and at the end of that time we sieve it, and it's really terrific. Okay, a little bit of oil, about half a teaspoonful now, into there. You can say that's almost silly because, you know, it's too little, but no, because just to release the oils again. This time not an onion, but a shallot. And this time for seafood. So if I'm going to use salmon, but if you wanted to use shrimp or halibut would be nice. Then what you need to do is to poach this, and on the poaching base I just wanted 2 ounces of shallots and just a little oil just to be able to break some of the natural flavors out of that shallot. To this we will add a couple of pieces of salmon, and the salmon is a coho salmon. It doesn't need to be the very most expensive salmon. It's bright pink. It's got to be a lovely color. That's going to go in on the top of those, and we put in the stock, which is 2 cups, just 2 cups. It should sizzle just a little bit, and those are the natural oils coming out of the shallots, and 2 cups of stock. And I'm going to go into a whole thing about stock with you in 2 or 3 programs' time, so if you'll forgive me just sort of carrying on. Take the salmon and just pop it into the surface just like that, settle it down, and just simply put a lid on the top so that you can have a look at it, and we're fine. Okay, well this is doing well here. Why don't we have a look about buying? You know, when you go into a produce department, in fact the whole supermarket, you want to make great pasta, there's all kinds of little tricks, so let's go to the supermarket and find out about the tricks. Over to you. Thank you, Graham. Okay, well, here's the pasta department, and there's a few choices to make here. First of all, if you want to make your own pasta, and terrific sort of aficionado of this, then get unbleached semolina pasta flour and put it together with eggs, and it makes a marvelous pasta, makes your own fresh pasta. Now, backing away from that just a little bit from a convenience point of view, you can get pasta like this one. It's what I call salter fresh. And this one, you see, takes about 2 to 3 minutes to cook till it's al dente to suit the tooth. And so this is quite a good idea. But it has egg yolks in it, as this has egg yolks in it as well. Okay, what about the one without any eggs in it? Strangely, there's a classic. Come this way. One of the absolutely staggering things about pasta is that they've got their name up in lights now. And you come to a section like this one, where from here all the way up to here, you've got this great amount of pasta. Now, the big thing that you'll find here is, unless it says the word egg enriched on a product, if you look in the ingredients, you will find no eggs. And because of that, the dried pasta is actually, for me, the pasta of preference. If you're really watching, you know, the amount of fat that you eat and cholesterol you eat, that's your decision. Now, produce department, but you'll notice en route to it, that this is where they have all the prepared sauces. I'll have a word with that in a moment. This is getting to be our first aerobic shopping expedition ever. Okay, so now we come down to the final place. Now, you can, of course, select these sauces, or you can have them peeled or whole or sliced or with basil in it and tomato paste and all the way down, including my friend. But you know, when push comes to shove, if you've got the time, fresh is wonderful. I won't say it's best, but it's one. Yeah, I'll say it's best, all right. Okay, now, when you're going to make the selection of best, there are just a few things that really need to be thought of when you're in the produce department, and this is this. First of all, the actual selection of a tomato to do it. Great, a good example of a perfect beefsteak tomato. Look at it, see how it squeezes soft and juicy and everything else. Now, here's the Roma, or the plum tomato. This is the one I'd like you to get for this. See the difference here? See how much fleshier this is on the outside and how much less juice there is in it. This makes a better concentrated flavor in the dish. Now, garlic. And I had to hunt around to find this one here, but here is a squashy clove of garlic. You know, loose, flaky pieces on the outside. It's going musty, and that one is off. Take it away. This one is the way to have your garlic. Look at it, nice, even, press it a little bit, and make sure that it's intact, and only by one at a time. If you want to put strings of garlic up in your kitchen for decoration purposes, please go ahead, but don't use it. Always take one at a time. Now, the basil. Now, fresh basil is a plant which grows alongside tomatoes beautifully. As a matter of fact, if you smell the basil and smell the tomato at the same time, that's just about what a great tomato should actually smell like. So, always get that beautifully fresh and always together, and when it comes together, it's one of the most exciting things you've ever tasted in your life, as Graham will now show you. Over to you, Graham. Finish it. Thank you, as always. Gosh, that was aerobic, wasn't it? I've been doing a bit myself here. This is passing all of that marinara sauce mix through a fine sieve until it's got fairly dry, but not completely. And you've got this sort of puree which has come through the bottom. Don't put it through, you know, a blender or anything else like that. It really doesn't work. Now, save this because it makes a great soup base, and after only 15 minutes, frankly, it hasn't given up all of what it's got. But this is just a fabulous marinara sauce, so put that on one side. Okay, now, let's get the pasta on. This takes just 5 minutes, and it's 5 minutes because this is spaghettini. It's a thinner thing by far than spaghetti. Well, not by far, but say half as thick, and so it should take about half as much time, obviously. Spaghetti is about 11 minutes. So with the water boiling and with 1/4 teaspoonful of salt in it, just simply drop the spaghetti in and try and sort of move it round the dish and pop it down as quickly as it will bend down into the boiling hot water. And then put a lid on top. Now, I normally try and disturb it, if you know me, like this, you know. Oh, it doesn't matter. Just to try and get the thing sort of separate from each other. It's like a good marriage. It just clings, you know, and to begin with. Now, put the lid on to raise the heat to make sure it boils quickly. In 5 minutes, I really need it to boil in 5 minutes. And that will, every piece will just be perfectly al dente. Now, let's have a look at the fish. Now, the fish is really quite simple to handle. It's just poached for that 8 minutes there. I turned it over just once whilst we were in the supermarket. And just lift it out, and it should be perfectly cooked in that 8 minutes. We're going to look at poaching fish a little later on, but that is the technique. Now, don't throw that away. We're going to need that sauce later on. With this, I take a couple of forks, and let's just take one of these and show you. And you just simply release the skin around the side, just pull the skin back. The skin should come away effortlessly. And then just dig the fork in and split it out. You see how the bones have come away perfectly here? There are now, let me just check on this, along the belly there may be 1 or 2 bones, and so run the forks along the belly like this and back towards the end, and that is completely, therefore, bone-free. There's a piece in there. Gotcha. That is now bone-free. And this can be put into the dish, all right? we'll just take that bone away. Now, the bones and the trimmings, the little bits and pieces that come out of the fish, just scoot those back into that sauce and give it a bit more simmering, because it's all good value and good, wonderful texture and taste. This goes together with the skin and the pips from the large tomato. Remember, it looked at the Roma as well as the beefsteak. If you take this big beefsteak tomato and just cook it for about 35 to 40 seconds in boiling water, you will find that, by the way, when once, oh, charming. When once you've lifted, got it boiling, lift the lid off the pasta, otherwise you'll just get foam all over the stove, as I obviously did. All right, so if you give this 35, 40 seconds, you will then be able to peel that back and take the skin off very easily, and then get the extra mush out of the middle of it and chop those up. Now, we've got 4 beefsteak tomatoes, and this is the freshness. This is what makes it so remarkable. And what we're going to do with this is to take a separate saucepan and just take that stock, the little bits and pieces, together with the pips of the tomato, which should have gone in there with it. You get the general idea, and then, you know, you've just got those little bits of juice from the tomato as well, so you waste absolutely nothing. And then toss these 4 chopped tomatoes into the top. Now, they're so fresh and wonderful that you then take the salmon and just scoot the salmon into there as well and let that heat up. And it does take a little time to heat up, and so this one is actually heated. So this is what happens when you get to this stage. You then take some fresh oregano, the fresh leaves. Just pluck the leaves, don't get the stalks in as well, and just pass a knife blade through it. Not to fine chop it, and don't do this ahead of time, because this goes black. When you pass a knife through oregano, it goes black, and it's very unfortunate. So just drop that in on the top, and then get 2 tablespoons full of arrowroot, you know, the stuff that we use to be able to thicken things without it seeming that it's been thickened at all. Put about 4 tablespoons full of water on there, and just shake it up until it's completely mixed. It's called a slurry. And this is just under the boil. So you then take this, whilst the freshness is there, and stir that in. Stir it in carefully, a little bit at a time. Now, I don't want it to get to the stage. I'm just going to make sure that this pasta is, thank you, stay, and good marriage, but move. And just pour this in. You don't want to clog it up. I don't want to make it look like a thick, solid sauce, but I do want it to glisten and just begin to hold together. I thought 2 tablespoons for just do it, and it does. So that's perfect. So the sauce is ready there, the salmon's ready, it's all heated up. So now you take the pasta and remove, always check the handles in case they've been drooping over something that's hot, and pour off most of the water, almost all of it, until you almost get to the pasta. Then with a colander set up there, pour that into that colander, and now you've got water in the bottom, okay, which is keeping the pasta nice and hot whilst you get ready. And it also happens to heat up the bowl at the same time, which is a terrific idea. So let it strain off, and 5 minutes should be perfect for al dente for the spaghettini. Heat the bowl underneath, and then here we go. The pasta is dropped into that bowl there, and with enough dew on it, just enough moisture on there to do it fine. And I've got here ½ a cup of finely grated Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to put ½ a cup of that into the top there, and let that stir in together, all right? Just to sort of toss that cheese in right through it. So it just sticks on to the fine, oh God, it smells so good. Look at that sauce. Look at that sauce over the top there now. And then just simply dive in at the sides and let it all drop down. Doesn't that look terrific? You can serve that with freshly grated parsley on the top. And when you take the actual dish out, when you actually take a portion of it out of there, with one of these special bowls, one of these special serving devices here that I've got. Look. Woohoo! Look! Lovely! A little bit more pasta, a little bit more cheese, and we'll see what it looks like. Come on. Just imagine what that would be like, running a restaurant and doing everything at the last moment. Gosh, what commitment. Okay, I'm going to actually compare this to a pasta dish with pesto called creamy pesto pasta with salmon. Always look out for those words, creamy and pesto. Delicious, but, you know, really hit up there a bit. And this is how high it can go, $9.58 for one dish. This comes down to $5.36, so it's a little help. But look at that, 12 grams of fat instead of 64 grams of fat. 75 on the carbohydrate, for you guys who are watching that. 20% calories from fat, good stuff. And cholesterol whistles down to just 55. And there's sodium, comes in at 387. So it has a jolly good profile all the way around. It's a good Minimax dish. All right, now, of course, good Minimax dishes only depend upon whether it tastes good or not. Spear the pasta together, roll it into a spoon for eating this. You'd think that it was covered in oil. It has the most delicious flavor. It has depth and color and freshness. Do try it. Springboard, your own ideas every time. Remember? Okay, have fun. Okay, now, one of the things that came up a little while ago with me is someone was saying, you know, you can eat anything in moderation, and I absolutely believe in that statement. So I looked at it and thought, is it everything? Because, we've discussed this before. My wife Trina with the 350 cholesterol at the highest point it ever was, now down to 222, and with me 165, well, you know, there are differences in the two of us, so, you know, it depends on who you are. But let's say that on a Monday night you eat fettuccine Alfredo, and I've got nothing against that, it's just that it happens to have rather a lot of fat in it, and it illustrates this story rather nicely. So you have 130 grams, that's the same as the weight of 130 paper clips of fat in that dish. Now, I need about 60 grams of fat per day. Well, I don't need it, but I mean, that's the measurement that I actually absorb. So that's twice my normal day's allocation. So what am I going to do? Am I going to actually think of going for the next day, which is the suggestion made, be careful how you eat the next day. Well, even if I ate no fat at all on the next day, that would only get rid of 60 of that, okay? So, Leo, I'd go careful on what I eat the day after that with 0. And now, hey, I made it. But it's no fat at all for 2 days. That seems like a terrible sort of problem. So why don't I just go to the Pritikin diet? Now, I would have to go to the Pritikin diet for 6 days in order to be able to absorb the amount of fat that I had in one 20-minute thing. That's the point at which I begin to worry about whether it's sensible or not. Yeah, I know it's a great dish, I know it's fun to eat, but is it fun to go all that period of time compensating for something that you did and got over in only 20 minutes? I don't think it's much fun. And I'll tell you what, I think it's really important if you and I are beginning to start this process of saying, I'm going to start living within limits somehow. Know what your limits are, and maybe fettuccine Alfredo is outside your particular limits. Or if you do want to have it, at least know that you should go 8 or 9 days following it and take a tablespoonful of fat per day out of all the things that you do. Does that make sense? Great. Because I tell you what, nowadays, we're surrounded with a whole new method of actually putting food together. We're looking at fat as we have never looked at it before. I don't know whether you are, but I certainly am with my family. And I find that as I embrace the whole concept of fat, then I begin to learn to measure things in my own mind. Then I can eat in moderation, and it becomes true. Okay, God bless. Most important thing, of course, never forget this one, is keep it fresh. The whole concept of this dish today has been fresh, fresh, fresh from beginning to end. Thank you, Giovanni. Forget that you adore your door. You're a wonderful man. God bless. Bye.